questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
Are you serious?
And when Joe Biden insulted you by saying, you ain't really black, we don't know whether or not you want to vote for me or vote for Donald Trump, it seems to me that should have been a wake-up call on your part. How dare this guy come in here and insult you, a black man, and tell you you got to think a certain kind of way? I'm amazed that you weren't mad about that.
I'm not. Hello there. Welcome once again to the YouTube channel. You here with Pastor James. Listen, we got a very interesting one. We have Larry Elder. He went over on the Breakfast Club to talk about systematic racism, fatherlessness, and issues in the black communities and so on. Larry Elder, 71 years old, has an amazing career as a political commentator, author, and writer. I mean, this man is good, man. He's been in several movies as well. I know Uncle Tom 1 and 2, and there's been other projects that he's been a part of. Larry Elder is very balanced. I think in this discussion, you're going to see a display of intelligence and stupidity. You're going to see the perspective of a conservative versus the perspective of, I will say, far leftist. And it's actually, I had to keep my composure because I realized this is really sad that Larry Elder had to sit there and school Charlemagne the Frog, and also there's what's her name, that lady Tenso something, I forgot her name. Anyway, I don't think that matters right now, but we will figure out along the way as we go through this. So there is DJ Envy, Charlemagne the Frog, because he's not a god. I want to make that abundantly clear. And there is that lady, she was gonna come on the screen. You will figure it out, and you see what I mean in a minute. So anyway, friends, let's get to this video. Larry Elder in this one is gonna give the reason why he's running for office, and I want you to watch carefully how this stuff is being discussed, how it is being addressed, the pushbacks, and the approach. And I'm gonna also fast forward to show you what Larry Elder says at the end. You want to watch this video to the end because Larry Elder's not only address Charlemagne the God about a specific matter, answering one of a particular question, but he actually rebuked Charlemagne the God in the most loving and compassionate way. Listen, man, this is a good interview, and I would encourage you to watch the entire thing. Link in the description below. Check out other links that I got going on down there. Like and subscribe to the page if you happen to be new. Click the bell icon for more. Let's get to this video.
So let's jump right into it, President.
Well, I'm running as an America First mega guy, and we have an America First mega guy running, obviously. So the question is, what do you bring to the table?
You say MAGA?
MAGA.
Okay.
And the answer is, I bring a lot of issues to the table that I feel our side is not talking enough about, if at all. For example, the #1 social problem in America, by far, is the epidemic not of COVID, but of fatherlessness. 70% of black kids today enter the world without a father in the home, married to the mother, up from 25% back in 1965. Now 25% of white kids enter the world today without a father in the home, married to the mother. And the stats are clear. Even Barack Obama once cited them. If you're raised without a dad, you're 5 times more likely to be poor and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in jail. What's happened? In the mid-'60s, with I think the best of intentions, a Democrat named Lyndon Johnson launched what he called the War on Poverty. And since then, we have incentivized women to marry the government and incentivized men to abandon their financial and moral responsibility. You know, when I say this to people, the pushback I get is, well, there are lots of things that are going on, systemic racism, poverty. Here's the problem. If you look at a young black male aged 10 to 43, that's young to me because I'm 71 years old. A young black man in that demo is 13 times more likely to be murdered than a young white man, same demo. Young black man, real young, 19 and under, the #1 cause of preventable death is homicide, almost always at the hands of another young black male. Same demo for whites, the #1 cause of preventable death is unintentional deaths. That includes drug overdoses, automobile accidents, drownings. It's not until they get to #4 that death is the cause. In America, 60% of the shootings, the robberies, and the homicides are committed by black people, often against other black people. Of the homicides in this country, half of them are black victims, almost all killed by other blacks. How do you explain that if it isn't for the absence of fathers? Are you prepared to say black people are just genetically inclined to commit more crime? I doubt it. And the go-to reaction often is poverty and systemic racism. Here's the problem. 1940, when there was blatant racism. This is before Brown versus Board of Education, before the Civil Rights Act of '64. KKK was still alive and well. 87% of blacks lived under the poverty line. Now it's about 14%. You can't blame it on poverty. You can't blame it on racism. It is the breakdown of the nuclear intact family, and neither side is talking about it. The left doesn't talk about it because they caused it with the welfare state, and our side does not talk about it because if you're white, you'll be accused of dissing single moms who are heroically raising these kids, or you'll be accused of being a racist, or if you're black, you'll be accused, as I was by the LA Times, of being the black face of white supremacy. Nobody's talking about that. I am.
Wow, what an intro. Loaded with facts. I actually agree. If I would add anything, it would be, besides systematic racism has one of the reasons like they like to refer to, or just being genetically inclined to do evil. It's no such thing really. Although I do know by nature we are evil and sinful. But I said there's a culture. I think the broken home definitely is one of the key element that is causing some of these issues in our black communities. But the children being raised without a father is definitely killing us. Fatherlessness is definitely a problem. I had actually preached a whole message on that recently at a church, and a number of people came to me with tears in their eyes saying, you finally touch. First time I hear in church somebody touching the issue of fatherlessness and how much is impacting the culture and also even the church. I will say culture is also another problem. I know he addressed systematic racism, fatherlessness, genetically inclined to do evil, but the culture of that black people have adapted over time. And I think a good book that really explains this is Thomas Sowell's book that talks about black rednecks and white liberals and black rednecks, either one. That first chapter addresses that blacks have adopted a culture that came from Southerners that literally involve a life of degeneracy and sinful behaviors. And you can see it displayed through hip hop, and you can see that same culture is being perverted, destroyed, glorified by a lot of our young black men. And I think a lot of what we see in our culture, in society, in our communities are the result of that particular culture we've adapted. I myself got myself in a lot of trouble being raised in Brooklyn because of that culture. I had my ears pierced. I was acting up. I was smoking because hip hop told me to do it, until Jesus came into my life and changed everything around. But I was going down a dark valley. The Lord had to get my attention. And I can see a lot of young children, a lot of youth in black communities are actually going through that reality. This doesn't necessarily mean hip hop is the problem. It's just that what it I don't blame a genre of music, but the type of content that is in the music could be a problem, and the way it is indulged and processed. And if you don't have the mental ability to know what to do with the information you are given, subconsciously you'll be indoctrinated to do a lot of evil things. So let me be quiet. Things are gonna get really interesting here. So let's take a listen some more.
What are the reasons, if your statistics are right, what are the reasons that you think fathers aren't in the home?
As I said, it's because in the mid-'60s, Lyndon Johnson launched what he called the War on Poverty. In Charlemagne, literally, they sent social workers door to door in the inner city. I remember this, advising women of the availability of welfare provided there was no man in the house. It created an economic incentive for women to marry the government. Same thing with whites. In 1965, 8% of whites entered the world without a father in the home married to the mother. Now it's about 25%, also up threefold. Look at census data, 1910, 1920, 1930, in places like Milwaukee, Chicago, Philadelphia. A young black kid was slightly more likely to be brought into a world with a father in the home married to the mother than a young white kid. We have incentivized this kind of bad behavior, and it's had a disproportionately bad effect on the black community.
Let me ask you a question. What do white people do wrong?
All right, this is when things start to go downhill because having given all this information, Larry Elder poisely, calmly, with lots of self-control and compassion and humility, given the facts. Did you hear the question that he asked?
And it's had a disproportionately bad effect on the black community.
Let me ask you a question. What do white people do wrong?
What do white people do wrong? What does that even mean? Like, he's not talking about white people in particular. That's the stupidity I'm talking about. That's the stuff here that gets under my skin because it's like, I mean, where's the intelligence? The Breakfast Club have 5.38 million something subscribers. That's a lot of people watching. So with all the facts you are given, this is the question you ask.
Larry Eld.
What do you mean? What do white people do? I'm not worried about white people. I'm worried about what's going on with us.
But if there's systemic racism in this country, which we know it is.
No, I don't say there is. You say there is. I don't believe that.
Oh, you know, racism in this country, which we know it is.
No, I don't say there is. You say there is. I don't believe that.
Oh, you don't believe there's
No,
systemic
there used to
racism?
be, obviously. Tell me what you think the number one systemic example of systemic racism is in America.
Oh man, there's so many.
Just give
Oh man, he's going fishing.
me the most important one you think.
But at the top of mind, I'd probably maybe say mass incarceration.
Mass incarceration.
Maybe.
Really? During the Great Depression, when 50% of black adults were unemployed, you didn't have this kind of mass incarceration. It's the breakdown of the family. There's a direct.
I'm not going to. I agree with the family part. I'm a black man who is a father to his children, and I'm a happily married black man to a black woman. So I'm never going to argue with that part, you know. But I just feel like
You're not going to argue with it, but you're not addressing it either.
everything is black with you. Black is wrong. Black people do this and black people do that. And when I ask you what white people do wrong, you said you're not worried about white people at all.
I'm talking about the damage, disproportionate damage going on in the black community. For example, look at these smash and grabs that are taking place in Los Angeles, where I live. There's a suburb called Glendale, where at a mall recently, a mob of 30 to 40 people, they had masks on, but one guy got popped. He was a black, and I think most of those who were doing this were black. And in recent years and times, there have been a number of these in places like Chicago, places like New York. If I were involved in something like that, Charlemagne, I grew up with a dad, just as you're raising your own children. I would have been more afraid of my father than I would about the cops catching me. These kids are afraid of neither. They don't have a father in the home. Cops are demoralized. They're pulling back. Their manpower is short. And as a result, you tell a bad guy you're less likely to be caught, convicted, incarcerated, crime goes up. They may be criminals, but they're not stupid. When you say, what do white people do? I mean, this is a country that has struggled mightily to get over its historic racism.
Yeah.
There was a civil war. There was a big civil rights movement.
Yep.
This is the only majority white country that's ever elected a black president, let alone reelected a black president.
True.
The three biggest cities in America are New York, Chicago, LA. They all have.
I don't know how. The only country that ever fought and gotten rid of slavery without the help of white people was Haiti, and I think we're still paying for it. Somebody's still not upset. There's somebody still not happy with us ever since. But here in the United States, though, I don't think black people could have ended slavery and have so much positive change having been wrought without the help of white people. Yeah, I said it. A lot of the people who fought against the evil of slavery were white people. So I don't necessarily understand the nature of this question, because America came together and decided to do things differently. Abraham Lincoln and many people who decided to fight, many Christians who fought, wars were fought, books were written. It wasn't something that happened overnight. It took time, but I mean, we should be happy. So much have been achieved and done, and don't overlook the many blacks who fought. Okay, don't overlook the many who social justice, who the movement in itself, who brought about an end to this. But it's just, I don't see how slavery could have ended as fast as it did in America without the help of white people. I don't see it. It was a collective movement that brought about a change. And as Americans, we should be very proud of ourselves because of that.
Black mayors, even though no city has a majority of black population. The president of Harvard is a black female. Martin Luther King in 1966, Charlemagne, gave an interview to the BBC. This is 2 years after the Civil Rights Act of 64 got passed. And he said, I'm amazed at how many positive changes there have been in America in the last 2 years. Why, if things keep going like this, we could have a black president in about 40 years' time. Do the math. Right on cue, Barack Obama elected 2008. He didn't say there'll be a black female president of Harvard, and there has been. He didn't say there are going to be black CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, and there have been several. He didn't say the percentage of the House would equal the percentage of black people in the population, and it does. He didn't say the three largest cities would have black mayors, and they do. He didn't say the largest and most prestigious organization of doctors, the American Medical Association, would have 2 black presidents, and there have been. He didn't say the most prestigious organization of lawyers, the American Bar Association, would have 2 black presidents, and they have. He said president, meaning at that point, I can feel that I've reached the mountaintop, which is the speech he gave right before he got assassinated the day before. And now we act as if Barack Obama never even got elected. And we're still talking about systemic racism. It's not fair. It's wrong. And you're discouraging black people from working hard. 1990s.
Okay.
Facts. Oh, okay. She's coming in now. She's coming in now. Should we pause and pray? Because she's a hard one to listen to.
Mr. Elder, quick question. Let's just remove the word racism, since that seems to be a word that triggers, a conversation down the water hole. Let's just focus on the word system.
So, okay. Oh, so this is Teslin Figueroa. Okay. Miss Teslin.
Triggers, a conversation down the water hole. Let's just focus on the word system.
Okay.
You mentioned that the system was the one that discouraged. And again, we have no problem with agreeing that the family, the black family, should certainly has some room for some improvement. But let's just focus on system.
Room for improvement?
System.
Room for improvement. No, that's the problem that he gave you. That's actually one of the main problems in black communities. Not just in black communities, it impacts white communities as well. Actually, every community is impacted. Family is the foundation of every society. You destroy the family structure, that's the end of society and the end of the community, and so goes the country. So the fact that she's making it sound like it's a small issue is already problematic. But let's keep going.
Has some room for some improvement. But let's just focus on system.
Room for improvement?
System. Well, we're not going to go down that water. We're not going to go down that water hole. Let's get to the question.
Of course you're not.
So the question is, you said that the system encouraged black women to be single mothers, correct?
I said the welfare state, yes.
The welfare, the system. So who's in
Okay.
charge of the system? Who was in charge of the system?
Well, it was Democrats that passed it.
And who were Democrats? Were they black or white at that time?
Well, at the time, majority of black people were Democrats, as the majority of black people are Democrats now.
Not the voters. I'm talking about the system. Remember, the main idea is the word system. Who was in charge of the system at the time? The Democrats at the time.
He answered the question already.
The system. I'm just going to Charlamagne's point about white or black. Was it white Democrats in charge of the system or black Democrats in charge of the system?
Well, if you're prepared to say that Lyndon Johnson did this viciously with an intent to destroy the black family, I disagree.
But you can see how racism is showing. For her, is if there is a system that black people do not benefit from, and if the people that created the systems were white, therefore there ought to be systematic racism. That's her argument. Well, that's stupid. Because there's a lot of systems in place in America right now where black people are in control, and that system is still hurting black people. So do you call these systems racist? No. Poor policies. The system is not right. The laws are not right. Or the people running the systems are not right. But you don't go and blame the system, right, in itself. And this is not to say there isn't some truth to systematic racism, right? There is some truth to it. I wouldn't call it racism so much, though. I will say broken system, okay? Like the education system for a lot of black communities is not good. I don't think it was put together for the purpose of keeping black people back, though. I just thought that these were liberal, I would say leftist policies that just went completely left field. Okay, they gave promises that they could not keep. That was the issue. Now, I don't go around calling it racist. It's just a system that needs to be changed. And that's why our education system needs to be changed. And black people today and a lot of young people are suffering in a very negative way as a result of that. But you don't go and call that systematic racism, though. You get it? So let's keep going.
He did it with the best of intentions.
And
if you look at the New York Times, which is left wing, the Washington Post, which is left wing, they cheered all of this.
Right,
Yeah,
and what
they
I'm
did.
asking was it white people, so I'm going to ask again in case my mic's not coming through clearly.
You see how disrespectful this woman is? I'm going to ask again because my mic doesn't come in clearly. What does that mean?
Right, and what I'm asking was it white people, so I'm going to ask again in case my mic's not coming through clearly. Was it white people in charge of the system or black people in charge of that system that helped break down the black family? It's a simple yes, just a simple question, white or black?
Well, you didn't have to go on welfare unless you voluntarily chose to go on welfare. The inducement was put there.
So it's got to be the fault of the white man, right? The white man is the white man's fault. Today, 2023, you're still blaming the white man. That is so sad and ridiculous.
by Democrats, by
White
the
Democrats,
left.
correct? Okay.
White Democrats.
White
Well,
Democrats,
most black people were Democrats, and they voted for these white people
Not
too.
voters. I said who's in charge of the
in charge?
system.
Well, who
Who was in charge?
who put them in charge?
Was Lyndon Johnson?
Exactly. Who put them in charge is the question. They didn't get in charge all by themselves. If blacks were Democrats voting for people that are in the system who are whites, who are putting laws in place that eventually impacted their communities. So who is ultimately to blame for it? Our own political views. We have to blame ourselves for this. Now, is it because of white or black thing? I don't think that's what it really is. I think it has to do with either the informed, right? The information you were given politically, which plays a significant role. Like we were told, if you're black, you got to vote Democrat, right? This woman makes no sense. Oh my goodness. I have a hard time listening to her.
Johnson, white or black?
Who put them in charge?
Maybe that'll help you.
Fine. Lyndon Johnson was white.
Thank you.
Okay.
She thought she got something done.
But if your argument is that the reason he did it is because of racism, then I disagree. He did it because of
That's not my argument. I just asked you a simple question. Was he white or black?
Simple question. It wasn't that simple. You made it very complicated. Anyway, let's move on because I don't like listening to her. Let's move on. Now, this is the question that he made reference to. It's like a N wake-up call is referred to. And the idea is that as a successful black man in America, there is this N wake-up call. This is when you realize that as a black man, America hates you. Even though you may be successful, doing well, you didn't see skin color, but all of a sudden you have this wake-up call that the America is racist, and now you start fighting this social justice warrior war that supposedly we all in. So let's listen to how Larry Elder addresses the perspective, the question that was asked by Charlemagne the Frog. Let's take a listen.
I know you probably got to go. Have you ever heard of the term nigga wake up call?
No.
It is an incident where a person of color forgets that they are of color and are reminded rather brutally by an unexpected act of racism. Have you ever had any of those?
Oh, brother.
I'm just asking. You think you've ever
Well,
had
I'm acutely aware, Charlemagne, that I'm a black person, just as you are a black person. And when Joe Biden insulted you by saying, you ain't really black, we don't know whether or not you want to vote for me or vote for Donald Trump, it seems to me that should have been a wake-up call on your part. How dare this guy come in here and insult you, a black man, and tell you got to think a certain kind of way? I'm amazed that you weren't mad about that.
I'm not.
Oh my Lord, this is a knockout punch.
I can say it upset me, just like I'm not letting you upset me. You know what I mean? I don't tend to get upset over things like
Well,
that. But what I did say,
well, you just not talk about a nigger wake-up call, and it seemed to me that should have been a wake-up call on your part to have a white guy come in here who also said, by the way, about Mitt Romney, because he didn't want to put more regulations on Wall Street, going to put y'all back in chains. And Joe Biden has lied for decades about his civil rights record, claiming that he desegregated movie theaters and restaurants in Wilmington, Delaware, when he didn't do any of that. He lied and said that he tried to visit Nelson Mandela during apartheid South Africa. He did not. And he came in here and told you aren't even black and let you think a certain kind of way. It seemed to me that should have been a nigga wake-up call for you, but it wasn't, apparently.
I mean, for the record, I'm not a Democrat or Republican. I
didn't say you were.
Yeah, I think both.
I don't know what you are.
Yeah. He's pulling that. I'm not a this. I'm not. You're a leftist though. Yeah, and you've been pushing that leftism kind of nonsense upon our families and children. So
apparently,
I mean, for the record, I'm not a Democrat or Republican.
Yeah.
I didn't say you were.
I think both.
I don't know what you are. I never even asked you about your party affiliation.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, but you are black, and to have a white guy come in here and tell you have to say think a certain kind of way, otherwise you quote ain't black. Wow.
How should I?
Wow.
You think?
What I just now said. How dare you insult me and tell me I think as a human being, let alone as a black person? I don't tell you how to think, Joe Biden. How dare you come in here and tell me how I should think? I'm going to vote for Donald Trump if I want to vote for Donald Trump. And if I want to vote for Donald Trump, it does not make me not black. 20% of black people, black men, as I said, voted for Donald Trump in 2020. Are they not black now? So only 80% of black men walking around are really black, 20% are not because they voted for Donald Trump? How insulting is that? How condescending is that?
I mean, you're probably right, but I didn't take it in that way.
Well,
that's the end of it. We're done. Listen, I know I'm sorry for torturing you with this. Lord have mercy. Larry Elder is a national treasure. 71 years old, so much wisdom. I plan on buying some of his books because he just makes a lot of sense when he speaks, and he does have a Christian perspective about a lot of things as well. I love the fact he was so poised and calm and humble and controlled the whole time. And secondly, it's just that I appreciate the fact that Breakfast Club, even though I have my disagreement, the fact they invited a black Republican. You don't have to, black doesn't matter, just a Republican figure on their podcast to discuss this. And I think I give them respect for that. Even though there was a lot of pushback, they don't do this with Kamala Harris. They don't do this with other candidates that are Democrats. But when it comes to Republicans, they tend to give them a hard time. But that's fine. So at least I respect that. Larry Elder was on point. There was a comment made in the description underneath this video. I'm gonna find this for you because the comment was spot on. Let me see if I could find that. All right, there are several things that were said. One of them is Larry Elder went into the lion's den. And held his own. This is powerful. Matter of fact, he fasted. He feasted. The level of patience and grace he demonstrated while dealing with disrespect and gaslighting is admirable. I donated and look forward to hearing him in Milwaukee. Powerful. Somebody had another comment. I couldn't find it. I lost it. So anyway, it's just when you read the comments underneath, people get the message. Larry Elder had to deal with some serious misunderstanding, and the stupidity was really bad, but he held himself pretty good. That's the impressive part of this interview, is just how well poised and knowledgeable. It's like a grown man speaking to 3 children in a room. Honestly, that's how I felt. Not in a way to disrespect, but the perspective that they had is very childish like, and they're not really understanding. Even though he was giving them facts after facts, they didn't really mean anything to them. And I think that's part of the problem with some of these people. Like, the truth means nothing to them. But sanctify the Lord in your hearts. Be ready always to give an answer to every man that asketh you a reason for the hope that is in you with meekness and fear. I thought that was a perfect display of what Larry Elder was doing here, because although he wasn't talking about Jesus in any way, but the point of what we're talking about here is the fact that he was ready to give an answer for what he believed, and he knew what he was talking about. I really appreciate this interview. Link in the description below. Like and subscribe to the page if you happen to be new. I'll see you on the next video. What do you think about this? How do you think Larry Elder composed himself? What do you like about this man? What do you think about the Breakfast Club? Or do you think at all about the Breakfast Club? Have a good one. Bye.